Alert, alert, this is a Doomcock News alert. Alert, alert, this is a Doomcock News alert.
Greetings, my friends. This is Dictor Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth. And I am here today to talk about Disney World. As you know, I have been highly critical of Galaxy's Edge, the attraction in the Disney parks that is focused on the sequel trilogy, because it has failed to include any Star Wars in the Star Wars parks. That is documented. However, recently I was watching an episode of Destination Linux, specifically episode 116. This is a videocast discussing the benefits and ins and outs of the Linux operating system. And normally these guys don't get too much into pop culture issues, but this episode, right off the bat, they mentioned something that definitely pertains to my viewers and listeners, and I thought that I would bring it to your attention because this is actually, in its own way, much, much worse than Star Wars Galaxy's Edge ever dreamed of being. Now, on this podcast, Ryan, aka DasGeek, took his family to Disney World. And as they were going ahead and checking in to the happiest place on earth, suddenly an issue arose. Ryan's wife was very upset when the Disney employees asked his 5-year-old and his 6-year-old to give their fingerprints and their biometric scans to get into Disney World. According to Ryan, it's because they don't want to lose the extra $40 from a kid's ticket, because there have been instances in the past where parents would take one of their kids into the park and then leave the park and take that kid's band to their other kid outside and bring that kid in, thereby saving a little extra money from their strapped budgets. So in order to protect Disney profits now, they're not only fingerprinting children like criminals, but they also want their biometric data in order to track them. That's right, my friends. Now the new system that you use to navigate the park is you use your fingerprint to get in, along with a facial scan and an RFID wristband to make sure that you're authorized to access that magical land of childhood joy and wonder. George Orwell's Disney World, 1984. Yes, my friends, Disney World is the happiest place on earth if you're Big Brother. Apparently, Ryan's wife raised hell about the situation, and so after a lot of resistance from park employees, they went ahead and did some kind of alternative admission for them. Like if you raise hell at the airport because you don't want to take a radiation bath to get on the plane so that they can check you for shit, you could get patted down and scanned in the old-fashioned way. Although Disney claims, apparently on its website somewhere, because Ryan went and searched out this information, Disney claims that they don't retain this biometric data beyond the child's visit. The idea of a database of children's facial patterns and fingerprints means that they're marked for life. Because in this day and age, if you don't think other corporate entities, including the government, are going to buy or intercept access to that data, you are naive and you are kidding yourself. These kids will be marked for life. Their data available, at least potentially, to Disney, to its corporate partners, to its affiliates, to entities that would purchase the data, and surely the government, because nothing really eludes them. All that information will be available for the rest of their lives. Now you may say, well, kids are fingerprinted at birth. The government gets that facial data anyway, just from them walking around, and you may be correct about that. I'm not going to argue that point. I think it's horrible. But think about the worst part of this. The most pernicious and disturbing part of this admission policy to Disney World is that now kids are being conditioned from the youngest age to think nothing of turning over their privacy to authority, to being fingerprinted like criminals, to have cameras spying on them all the time, tracking their faces. It is conditioning kids to surrender to authorities and get used to being processed and herded like cattle. To put them into a slave mentality where compliance with official requests will be automatic and without hesitation. Fingerprint me, track me, scan my features so that computers will recognize me instantly wherever I go? Okay, sure, so long as I go get to see Mickey Mouse and Ray. That should scare you. Instilling within your children an automatic obeisance to authority is one of the worst things that you could do to your kids, in my opinion. Now, I don't have kids, that's true, but I can tell you that if I did have kids, there's no way in hell I would allow them to do this. I would explain to my kids why it's not okay to just give away your privacy for candy. You're supposed to tell your kids at an early age not to get lured into a car by a treat. I guess in the 21st century, you should also warn them not to be lured into a theme park as well. One very interesting piece of information came from Ryan towards the end of his mini rant. He informed us that his kids had an okay time at Disney World, but while there was Mickey Mouse and animatronics and there was Star Wars stuff all over the place, in the end his kids were most interested in the Marvel stuff. So his kids, 5 and 6 years old, were much more into the Marvel stuff than they were the Star Wars stuff, which is more or less in line with everything that we've been saying all this time. While not a scientific sampling, this is an interesting anecdote from an actual dad with actual kids that tends to support what we've suspected for some time, that Star Wars is past its expiration date, that the sequel trilogy, for all the hype and all the attempts to lure in a new audience, has failed to ignite the imaginations of a new generation and is merely a doorstop to the gateway of imagination. In other words, Disney should have left Star Wars alone and focused on Marvel instead, because kids aren't buying into Jake Soywalker any more than we are. What kid wants to dress up like a mean old prick who throws his lightsaber away and has green milk drying in his beard? And little girls who enjoy being little girls apparently aren't keen on dressing like a flat-chested Anakin Skywalker in drag. Go figure. And that is my report from the front lines at Disney. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry.
Ha 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 ha.